Welcome back to CageChat, where we are going to be talking about UFC Stockholm. Now, of course, we had Alexander Gustafsson versus Anthony Lionheart Smith this weekend on UFC Stockholm. Now, before we get into the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and comment below, and as well, follow CageChat YT for Twitter and Instagram. So yes, kicking off CageChat, we're looking at Lina Lansberg, who defeated Tonya Evinger via unanimous decision in the prelims of UFC Stockholm, of course. Now, Lina Lansberg came out with this with a unanimous victory, and I think it was 30-26 from two judges and 30-27 from one. And to Tonya Evinger's credit, or to respect her, that was a bit on the favourable side. Though I think she got absolutely dominated. I think she got outclassed by Lina Lansberg, who of course was in her home nation, so she had the crowd behind her. But she looked phenomenal. I know the commentary said it was her best display as of yet inside the UFC octagon, and I have to agree. She looked sharp, she looked fresh, she was outstriking Tonya Evinger, and I think Tonya Evinger was in fact lucky to get out the first round. She got ground and pounded. You know, the advantage was really with Lina Lansberg, who is the elbow queen, and she cut up Tonya Evinger early in the first round and really dominated the fight from there on. Really, there wasn't a point where I can remember Tonya Evinger looking dangerous or looking like to get a knockout victory or turn the fight. Of course, this was a 3-round fight, so she didn't have, once you lose 2 rounds in a 3-round fight, you're pretty much done for and you have to search for that knockout. But I didn't see that in Tonya Evinger, especially once the card opened up. Now, Lansberg had 151 strikes, 268 for Tonya Evinger, so she outclassed her across all 3 rounds. She comfortably won all 3. And again, I think there was times in the fight where it could potentially be stopped. Tonya Evinger wasn't really defending herself. She was putting her arm out. She was doing well on the ground at points, but I think Lina was able to break that guard pretty easy, and she got some really heavy shots in. And you saw that in her output of significant strikes, which was 60 out of 80 in that fight, and she looks phenomenal now. I think she called out Aspen Ladd for a rematch. Now, I don't think that's the fight next to her. Of course, Aspen Ladd has got Jermaine Durandame for what could be a number 1 contendership match next, but I do think she's got someone like Sarah McCann, Irene Aldana, someone in that 11 to 8 range. I think she should be next for the elbow queen. Now, moving from the elbow queen to Alexander Rakic, who brutally knocked out Jimi Manuwa in the co-main event of UFC Stockholm, and it was done very quickly. Within the first minute of the first round, there was some strikes traded between both fighters, but the younger man, who is 27, 28, against a 39-year-old, he showed his youth, he showed his power, and a beautiful head kick landed on the dome of Jimi Manuwa, putting him to sleep almost immediately. It was quite scary when you see it. Jimi Manuwa was down for a minute or two whilst the doctors looked over him, but Rakic was flawless for the minute that he fought for. Now, considering both fighters only had 2 significant strikes each, you could see what was done here. It was very similar to I think it was Thiago Santos Jimi Manuwa fight that happened last year now, where Thiago Santos and Jimi Manuwa traded blows. They both got each other, but this time Jimi Manuwa, who has now retired, in fact, after the fight, he put out a very heartfelt post on his Instagram and has announced his retirement, and he was the third or one of 3 people to do that this weekend. The second we will mention later on in this video, but I believe he's had 4 losses on the row, 2 of them crazy knockouts now, and he has to really worry about his health. And I think he's not realised that, but I think he's always realised that, and he's recognised that it's time to lay the gloves down and look for something outside the octagon life. Although I think he's probably got, whether it's a training role or even a commentary role potentially in the media, Jimi Manuwa will still be around UFC or inside MMA for the near future at least, but just not fighting. Now, for Rakic, he looks like an up-and-coming light heavyweight in the same way as Johnny Walker is, Dominic Reyes, Anthony Smith now, who we will mention. Anthony Smith is a little older than those 3 fighters, but those 3 are looking like the ones to maybe challenge John Jones potentially and carry the division for the next 5-6 years perhaps. Now moving from one retired fighter in Jimi Manuwa to another, it was Alexander Gustafsson who returned to UFC Stockholm. He main evented this card against Anthony Hart-Smith, and he did actually say before the fight that if he lost this fight he would retire, and unfortunately he did lose. Now Anthony Hart-Smith looked very good for the first 2 rounds, where he actually broke his hand inside the second after a very heavy punch onto Alex Gustafsson. Now it wasn't a one-sided fight, it was going both ways. It was a very even fight, and I think Gustafsson was pulling away in that second and third round, especially after the broken hand, because Anthony Smith just wasn't able to use that left. Now he did manage to settle that with kicks and an excellent ground game, with being a black belt jiu-jitsu practitioner, I guess is the right phrase to use. So he is black belt level, and that came out clutch in the third and in the fourth round. Now it was a close fight in terms of output, with 73 strikes to 52 in favour of Gustafsson. So Gustafsson coming up to that third and fourth round and coming up to the end of the fight, he was in control, he was getting the output. I think at one point it was 33 kicks, leg kicks to 9. So you can see where Gustafsson's game plan was at. He was able to control the range, although Anthony Smith did control the centre of the octagon for most of the time. And it was a really class fight. Both of them. This light heavyweight division is an odd one because you've got such a stacked division, but it's Jon Jones who's that good and of such a level where it's almost irrelevant who's number 1 and who's number 2. And it's, there's like it's to relate to football, was like Man City versus like United, Spurs, and that level there. There's such a gulf in class, yet the people below it, the Dominic Reyes, the Thiago Santos even, who could topple Jon Jones perhaps in a month's time. Those fighters are quality fighters and deserve probably to be a champion in their own right. But unfortunately, there's been Jon Jones. So yes, similar to the Jon Jones fight at UFC 235, Gustafsson seemed to have tired out by the third round. He looked like he didn't have any more in the gas tank. Now he had a bleeding leg this time, which of course oxygen travels through the blood, so the loss of blood over a 15-minute period is going to be quite it's going to dictate where the fight goes potentially. But it didn't seem to bother him for the first 2 rounds, and he got a vicious kick to the body in the third round and was able to take down, but unable to take the advantage in the fight, especially with it only being 30-45 seconds left in that round. Anthony Smith, using his ground game, using his jiu-jitsu, held on, and he came out in the fourth and was able to take him down after a trade in strength, and Anthony Smith did win that trade battle. He took him down and was able to get the hooks in and really make Gustafsson, Gustafsson's a 6'5" fighter here. So Smith got the hold in, got the hooks in, and was able to flatten him out and get the rear naked choke in, of course, which Gustafsson tapped to. Now again, very similar pictures to UFC 235, where Gustafsson ended up on his back or on his front, flattened out against Jon Jones, who did get a TKO victory, not a submission victory in that fight. So it's very similar in his last 2 fights, and his Chael Sonnen, who I watch regularly, said that potentially he's got an injury, whether it's a slip disc or a rib injury, and to flattened out twice like that and not to have a comeback for it shows that maybe Gustafsson is done now. I think he's 32 or 33, so whether he can have some surgeries, maybe lay out a year or 2, maybe at that point Jon Jones isn't champion anymore. I think he is done, but whether unexpected circumstances could see him back, whether he gets to relax, maybe he just misses the fight game in fact, and he gets to 33, 34 and wants to come back perhaps. But I don't think this is going to be one of them stories. I think Gustafsson has realised that he's probably not going to be champion after having 3 attempts, of course, against Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier, who are both former champions. So he's reached his peak of his mountain, really. And the same could be said for Anthony Smith, should Anthony Smith not get a title as well. But I think Gustafsson carried the light heavyweight division. He made the light heavyweight division a lot better. The best fight he had was against Jon Jones in that first one, and he's had good fights against Daniel Cormier, and of course the second one against Jon Jones again. So he's had some top fights and top performances, and he does go down as a UFC legend perhaps. So yes, that was CageChat this weekend. Let me know what you thought about the UFC Stockholm card. We have got UFC 238 this weekend, which I'm looking forward to, and there's going to be a almost special like CageChat episode coming out about Anthony Joshua, of course, and Katie Taylor, who had their eventful weekends in boxing. So yes, make sure to hit the subscribe button, drop a like for that, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CageChatYT, and I'll see you on the next one.